Hello, you're listening to Go Chuck Yourself. In this episode, we'll be discussing Season 3, Episode 4, Chuck vs. Operation Awesome. And really, there's no time to waste, because if you remember in the last episode, Devon, kidnapped, killed, dead, alive, who knows? We gotta find out. Before we can find out, though, I just want to let you know, email us, GoChuckYourselfPodcast@gmail.com if you want to get in touch, if you have any theories, if you have any feelings about Devon, if you're feeling awesome, or if you have an operation, if you like the game Operation, if you'd like to teach me how to play it because my parents wouldn't buy it for me when I was a kid, email us about it or tweet at us at GoChuckPodcast. We'd love to hear from you. But now you got to hear us talk about what happened to Devon.
Listening to Go Chuck Yourself. It's a podcast about the television show Chuck. It's hosted by myself. My name is Chris Gillespie.
My name is Erin, and that was really casual.
She's also one of the hosts of the show. We are pretty laid back here. Just a couple of cool people talking about Chuck. We're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 4, Chuck versus Operation Awesome today. It's actually kind of jarring how laid back I am, seeing as last episode we ended on a cliffhanger. Devon, aka Captain Awesome, is in jeopardy. He's in danger. He's missing. We don't know where he is.
He might be dead.
But he could be dead for all I know. But we're just taking it easy, laid back. Erin, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I am, I'm not that concerned. I think the Chuck folks will figure it out. They're just, they're gonna get it done like they always do, and it's gonna be fine. And if he's dead, he's dead. Whatever. Ellie will get a new boyfriend. It'll probably be Morgan.
That you seem weirdly calm about it. You're weirdly supportive of the Chuck people. I think rightfully so. They get the job done. But then also you seem to be really indifferent whether or not Captain Awesome lives or dies, which is strange, seeing as we seem to have positive feelings about him. Well,
sometimes a character leaves a show and you just got to move on. You can't just. Sometimes a show gets canceled and you just gotta let it go.
Is everything okay, Erin? You seem to be kind of down in the dumps.
I just feel like we were a little bit mean to the host of the Peppa Pig podcast in our last episode, and I've just been feeling bad about it for a full week. And life doesn't have. I feel like life has lost its luster. I feel like I used to think of myself as like the hero of my story, but in the story of the hosts of the Peppa Pig podcast, I'm the villain, and that's just really getting me down.
Okay, hold on. Let's stop recording for a second. I'm going to put the recorder down.
Okay.
You got to look, I know sometimes things get difficult, and sometimes you jokingly start a war with another country based off of your podcast ratings. Someday you start off as the #1 television review podcast in Italy, and some days it's Peppa Pig, but you just gotta remember what's important and just go out there and have a good attitude. And I'm sure the Peppa Pig people will understand. I'm sure Peppa Pig preaches forgiveness. I've never seen the show, but you can't get too hard on yourself,
Chris, thank you. Thank you so much. As you were talking, I started to feel again inside my heart. I felt something I hadn't felt in a full week, and it was concern for Devon's well-being. I'm worried.
Yes.
Is he going to be okay?
Well, why don't we figure it out? Why don't you tell us?
All right, let's get going. So, this episode begins with Devon, who's alive. He's alive.
Thank God.
We don't have to wait. We find out right away he is alive. He's tied to a desk chair on top of a skyscraper for some reason. He's being questioned by a woman named Sydney who threatens to throw him off said skyscraper unless he tells her all about the CIA. He says she has him confused with someone else, but she says, "We know exactly who you are, Devon." Back at Castle, Chuck is freaking out despite everyone telling him don't freak out. Casey and Sarah are doing what they can to locate Devon, but Chuck and Ellie, who is at home and apparently in the dark about all of this, can't calm down. Chuck decides to channel his nervous energy into going to work, so we move to the Buy More, where Big Mike has called Morgan into his office and has promoted him to assistant manager. Has that not already happened? I thought Morgan was already assistant manager, but I guess he wasn't. Morgan accepts the position. Meanwhile, Chuck is barely containing his panic, and instead of keeping him from flashing, the panic sends the Intersect into overdrive. So I thought that was kind of a cute new thing that we see happening here.
Mm-hmm.
A woman asks for help in Thai, and Chuck responds fluently. Lester pretends to hit Chuck, and Chuck flashes on martial arts and kicks the shit out of Lester, which I liked, and so on. Sarah tries to take Chuck out of the Bymore, saying she and Casey think the ring might have Devon, but as Chuck works his way towards a complete meltdown, Devon walks into the store completely unharmed. I was a little worried he'd been brainwashed or something, but I guess that isn't where they go with it. He tells Chuck that they think he's a spy. In fact, they think Devon is Chuck. Back at Castle, we learn that Sydney has attempted to recruit Devon to the ring and left him with a ring communication device, like one of those circular phone things.
Mm-hmm.
Beckman explains that they can use the device to try to figure out the ring's plans, but first they're going to need Devon to pretend to be a real spy and do everything Sydney says until they can convince her she's turned Devon and use that to corner and arrest her. Chuck refuses to let Devon do this, but Beckman, Casey, and especially Sarah say it's the only way to keep Devon safe. Devon says he trusts Chuck, so he'll do it if Chuck says it's okay. At the Bymore, Chuck encounters Morgan wearing the assistant manager vest and congratulates him on his promotion. They're interrupted when Lester walks up with a huge bruise on his face. Instead of being angry at Chuck for kicking him, Lester says the kick made him feel like a man for the first time since his bar mitzvah, much like Chris's kind words made me feel like a human again. Jeff asks Chuck to hit him as well. He should have just asked Chris to say something nice to him, but these men and their violence. Chuck refuses, and as he and Morgan walk away, we see Lester just deck Jeff in the face in the background, so that was nice. Chuck takes Devon home to Ellie, and we get a cute and kind of uncomfortable sequence where Ellie asks where Devon was, and Devon, who is a terrible liar, spins a story about running in Griffith Park and being attacked by a bear, which he then decapitated. Pretty fun. Ellie understandably does not believe this. Chuck says it's time to tell Ellie the truth and tells her that Casey was drunk in Griffith Park and Devon spent the whole morning at the police station trying to get the charges against him dropped. Ellie does believe this, which is made even more funny and awkward when Casey walks by and says hello. In a quick cut back to Morgan, we find Skip Johnson and all the other Bymore employees, but especially Skip Johnson because he's the important one, covered in bruises and wearing sunglasses, which I assume is a reference to Fight Club, but that's not something I've seen. It is something, though, that the employees seem to have started. Morgan asks why everyone is beat up, but due to his new position of authority, Lester and Jeff refuse to tell him anything. Chuck continues to panic about what will happen when Sydney calls, which, as my therapist would say, does not actually prepare him for the stress of Sydney actually calling. Devon arrives with a package Sydney sent and a ringing ring phone. Chuck, Sarah, and Casey listen in as Sydney gives Devon instructions to open the package, put on the earpiece and watch that are inside it, and meet her at the Crystal Towers in an hour. Chuck talks Devon through this, and Sydney is somehow unable to hear Chuck talking, even though she can hear Devon. I know it's all, she can't even hear him like a little bit in the background. It's a little weird, but things get a little hairier when Devon puts in the earpiece, and Sydney tells him that it is also an explosive device. If he tries to remove it or deviates from her instructions in any way, she's going to detonate it. At the Crystal Towers, we learn that Chuck and the team have also provided Devon with a communication watch. Chuck has labeled both watches, so one says good guys and one says bad guys. Sure hope Devon doesn't mix them up. Spoiler alert, he's not going to, but I was very nervous the whole time that he might, talk into the wrong one.
But they make it seem like that the shot of him looking down at both of them, he's like, oh, he's going to mess it up eventually, but he doesn't. It's kind of misleading.
Yeah. Sydney calls and tells Devon to get to a penthouse on the building's 12th floor, then she'll call again. Casey tries to trace the call, but it's over too fast for him to find Sydney's exact location, so Devon has to follow her instructions.
I was wondering, and maybe you can answer this as a Los Angelino, are the Crystal Towers, that's a real place?
That is not a real place.
No?
No, and I actually read, I think it was on IMDb, or maybe it was Wikipedia, that this is a goof and it's not really a goof. I wouldn't say this is a goof. This is more a production design thing. But the towers they show are actually towers that I believe are in Century City. So that's not... They actually seem to film in Century City a lot. That seems like they're downtown LA, what they use as downtown LA, because it's also an area of LA that has taller buildings. But these towers say that they're in downtown LA. They make a point to put Crystal Towers downtown LA, but actually these specific buildings are not located downtown.
At the Crystal Towers, Devon is off on his own with 2 wristband walkie-talkies, as we mentioned. Sarah reminds Chuck that he needs to be composed for Devon's sake, so Chuck tries to keep it together, and he feigns confidence. Sydney calls Devon. Sydney is, I'm surprised that you didn't say anything about Sydney, especially considering who she is, the actress, and what the actress is from.
Is she from Agent Cody Banks?
Potentially.
She's from Agent Cody Banks. I mean, she's in Agent Cody Banks.
Who are starring our friend Frankie Muniz, our friend and olive oil
Excuse
expert.
me, you didn't say his name correctly.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That was that was really rude of me. God, I'm sorry. Frankie Muniz.
Thank you. Okay, please carry on. Who is?
But she's from Rizzoli and Isles.
Oh my God!
Show.
Oh my God! I knew she looked familiar, and I just looked at like Wikipedia only lists like so many things, and they say that she's known for like Law and Order and Agent Cody Banks. So I was like, yes, okay, that's probably where I've seen her. But that's absolutely why she looked familiar. Thank you. She's Rizzoli. She's like the tough one. She's the tough Italian one.
So Sydney calls Devon from the backseat of the car that she's riding in. She's just in a car for a long time, so it kind of looks like it's like an Uber Black or something like that. Seems
Yes.
pretty nice. She tells him that he needs to break into the Crystal Towers. Can I just say Crystal Towers sounds like a level on Spyro?
It does.
Someone out there understood that joke. I'm not expecting you to understand that joke.
That joke. It's like Rainbow Road.
Yeah, but someone really appreciated it. It's not like Rainbow Road. It's like Crystal Tower. It's someone will get that. And if you get that, please write in and let us know that you got it. And tell Erin that she's lame for not getting it.
I got it.
Yeah, but you didn't like feel it.
Okay, you're right.
Get it.
Okay.
You just were like, I got it.
Okay.
Anyhow, so Devon's got to get to the penthouse on the top floor. Sydney says that the building has tight security, but nothing that he can't handle. And she hangs up. Meanwhile, in the spy van, Casey tells Chuck that the call wasn't long enough to be tracked and that they need Devon to call her back. Chuck doesn't like the idea, but Sarah reminds him that they need to find Sydney to save Devon. So Chuck agrees to let Sarah and Casey do their thing while he goes and helps Devon break into the building. Chuck puts on a Crystal Towers uniform and heads out into the building. In the lobby, Devon is wandering around waiting for Chuck. A security guard approaches him and asks what he's doing. We know that Devon is bad at lying, as evidenced by the decapitating the bear story that he told his wife. So he starts to panic and says that he's there for his friend Chuck, who may or may not work there. The security guard is weirdly sympathetic to Devon and introduces himself as Julius and asks Devon what the problem is, since Devon seems lost and confused. Devon explains that he's just wrapped up in some bad stuff and is exhausted from keeping secrets and lying to his wife. Julius interprets this to mean that Devon is having an affair with Chuck and advises Devon to tell his wife the truth about Chuck if he truly loves Chuck. Devon tries to correct Julius, but then Chuck shoots Julius in the neck with a tranquilizer dart. Devon is concerned that Chuck killed Julius, but Chuck explains that he has a no-killing policy like Batman or Spider-Man and steals Julius's access key, and the two brother-in-laws escape into the building. As they head up the elevator, Devon asks Chuck what he thinks is up in the penthouse, and Chuck assures him that it's probably not as bad as they think. Of course, as soon as they arrive at the top floor, Chuck and Devon are ambushed by a bunch of henchmen, and Chuck flashes and becomes an expert marksman and tranks all of the guys like he's in the movie Wanted. Devon asks Chuck how he got so good, and Chuck says, Nintendo Duck Hunt.
My note here is, season of Erin, baby, this is badass.
You're taking credit over that?
No, I'm saying that this is still the season of Erin in that I am enjoying it immensely. I am not saying that it is good because it is the season of Erin. It's a chicken and egg scenario.
Yeah, if we failed to mention, but hashtag season of Erin.
Yes, this is
season 3.
Still the season of Erin.
Still hashtag season of Erin. Sydney, who's in the car, still riding somewhere. I guess that's what you do in LA.
Yeah, that's the most accurate LA part of the show.
She calls Devon and instructs him to go to the end of the hall and use a retina scanner to open the door. Sydney advises Devon to cut out one of the henchmen's eyeballs, but Devon tells Chuck that he took an oath to do no harm, and Chuck suggests that they just prop up one of the unconscious henchmen in front of the scanner. Once they pull this off, Devon and Chuck enter the room and step onto a large emblem on the floor that reads Central Intelligence Agency. Wait a second, that stands for CIA. Uh-oh, they just broke into the CIA. Chuck tries to communicate with Sarah, but there's some kind of scrambler situation going on with the feed, so Sarah can only hear Chuck say that it's the CIA. At this point, Sydney arrives at Crystal Towers and walks through the same parking garage that Sarah and Casey are parked in. As Sarah and Casey make to leave the van automatically locks and their spy computer screens go blank. Beckman pops up on the TV and tells them to stand down. She's just received new information and tells them that their new directive is to stand down.
Sir, this doesn't really make sense.
Stand down, Erin.
Okay.
Stand down. Stand down.
I'm standing down.
Sarah and Casey are pissed and tell her that Chuck is in some kind of CIA facility and that this whole thing was a setup. And Beckman says, yes, that's exactly what it is. And hangs up.
I don't understand.
I agree. This did not make any sense.
I don't understand what it's a setup for.
I had to watch this a few times because I was like, wait, what is happening? Is Beckman a bad guy? What is happening? I'm so confused.
It's still unclear. I still don't really understand.
Even after watching the episode?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no. We can talk about it at the end. I'll ask you again at the end. I don't really understand.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Sydney is walking through the lobby of Crystal Towers and calls Devon to tell him that he's almost done. He just needs to find the man in the CIA base and kill him. Devon freaks out, but Chuck assures that no one is going to kill anyone. They proceed down the hall and eventually find a muscular man typing into a computer in a fancy CIA office. Chuck tells Devon to hide, so Devon runs away.
Wait, hold on. Are you're describing Brandon Ralph? How do you know how to say that?
I am describing him.
You're describing him as a muscular man?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not muscular, but I feel like that's not like the first thing. I would say like a handsome, dark-haired, dark-eyed man. I wouldn't like highlight his muscles. He's like a good-looking guy.
I was getting to that.
Okay, sure.
Chuck tries to notify this man, who may or may not be Brandon Routh, of what's going on, but this man is not interested. Chuck introduces himself and says, "My name is," but then the man turns around and says, Chuck Bartowski. And it's none other than Superman himself, Brandon Routh. We should have figured this out ahead of time.
I was trying to listen to a pronunciation video, but I realized I shouldn't do that while we're recording.
No, go for it. You have it right there?
Yes. 1 second, I just closed it. All right, it says Ralph. Ralph.
Okay, Ralph. Brandon Routh. Okay. So yeah, Brandon Routh. I guess we're doing this now.
He's here.
Chuck is flabbergasted that this man, who we will find out soon enough is named Shaw, knows all about him. Shaw tells him that he knows all about Chuck in the ring and tells Chuck that Chuck needs to kill him before Sydney arrives on the top floor. Chuck doesn't want to do this, but Shaw hands him a gun and tells him to aim for his left shoulder. Chuck explains his Batman-like principles to Superman. It's kind of funny, like Batman versus Superman. The whole thing.
That is pretty funny.
But Shaw retorts that if Chuck doesn't kill him, Chuck and Devon are as good as dead. Shaw then takes a red pill out of his pocket and swallows it. Shaw insists that he needs to die and holds the gun against his own shoulder. Chuck just can't do it, so Shaw tells him to put the gun in Devon's hands and to hide. He also gives Chuck a letter to read afterwards, which is nice, I guess, just to provide him with like a nice little note or card or something, but like, hey, sorry the stranger died in front of you. Sympathies for killing me. Shaw says, truth is, I hate guns too, and proceeds to shoot himself in the shoulder. Devon runs in after hearing the gunshot and is upset because he thinks that Chuck just shot and killed this guy. They hear Sydney's footsteps approaching, so Chuck tells Devon to remember that they need to make it look like he just shot Shaw, and then Chuck hides in the back of the room. Sure enough, Sydney enters and sees Shaw dead on the ground. She inspects Shaw's body and tells Devon that he's cute and talented. She removes the explosive earpiece from Devon's ear and tells him to dispose of the body, but keep his weird little Ring cell phone. Sydney tells him that she'll be in touch and exits. Devon waits for her to leave, but then starts to freak out. So Chuck emerges from his hiding place. Chuck rips open Shaw's letter. Turns out that the red pill was amiodarone, and some kind of medical pill name. And there's a medical kit in the desk in the middle of the office. Devon knows what this substance is and knows how to administer the cure for it. Chuck hands him the medical kit, and Devon stabs Shaw in the chest with an adrenaline needle, bringing Shaw back to life. Once he comes back to life, Shaw says, "To answer your question, my name is Shaw."
It was pretty badass, but I feel like he could have explained that. Like, he could have taken the time to be like, I'm going to take this pill. It's going to make me look like I'm dead. You just have to shoot me in the shoulder. It's fine. Like, there was no real, because like, even Devon was out of the room. So even if there was some, like, it would have been better. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't tell Devon because Devon's bad at lying, but like, he could have told Chuck, but I don't know. It might have even been in their best interest that both people knew because they're supposed to be calm. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense why he didn't just explain this.
Yeah, it definitely would have been kind of calming to know that what was going on. But also, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how this works, but he took the pill and it slowed down his body to effectively dying. So he was like unconscious during that time, right? Anyways, but he immediately upon waking up remembered the bit that he was going to do upon being resurrected. I really admire that, being like, I have a bit, but the bit involves me dying, and once I come back to life, this is what I'm going to say. I think it's
that's really impressive. That's why Shaw is a great character. That's what makes him such a great spy.
That's what Beckman said?
Yeah.
No. The next morning, Beckman introduces Chuck, Sarah, and Casey to Agent Shaw and says that he's a great spy because he does bits that involve him dying and coming back to life.
The cardinal rule of being a spy is, the first one is don't fall in love, but the second one is commit to a bit.
Yes. She tells them that Shaw is an excellent spy. He has been committing to bits and working to take down the ring for the past 5 years. She tells them that Shaw now has authority over all of their missions involving the ring, which is surprising to all of them and to us because this has never happened before in the show. Mm-hmm. Casey says that he has magazines that are older than Shaw, but Shaw says that he's been briefed on all aspects of the intersect, so he knows everything about Chuck. Shaw dismisses Beckman, which is like really crazy. He's not fucking around. He can dismiss Beckman. Pretty wild. And Shaw hands over all of his intel on the ring to Chuck, Sarah, and Casey. Chuck is upset because Sydney is still at large, so Devon is still theoretically in danger, but Shaw tells him that they need to use Devon again as bait in order to lure Sydney out of hiding. If they can stop Sydney, they can contain Devon's identity. Chuck does not like this plan, but Sarah tells him that Devon will be in more danger if they don't use him in their mission. Chuck says that Devon is not a spy, but then Shaw asks Chuck, do you have a better plan? And Chuck looks into the camera. Just kidding. He's not looking into the camera. He's only sort of looking into the camera. He's actually looking at a computer monitor that is showing the schematics for the ring's weird little circle phone. Maybe he has an idea. Now,
I totally missed all of that. So,
well, you know what you know what else you missed too?
What?
The declassified scene that occurs here.
Oh my God!
You did not see.
Okay, please tell me more.
So this is a scene that was cut for time. Chuck pulls Sarah aside away from Casey and Shaw. He's upset that Sarah wants to use Devon again as a pawn. He expects more from her. He expects this kind of stuff from Casey and Shaw. Sarah very sincerely says that she wishes this wasn't the case, but it's the only way that they can protect Devon. Chuck asks if there's another way, but Sarah asks Chuck to trust her and walks away. At this point, Chuck notices the schematic for the ring phone on the computer monitor and definitely has an idea. So
okay. I like that scene. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know why they cut it out. Back at the Buy More, Morgan is wandering the sales floor and can't find any of the sales associates. He hears a dull roaring sound coming from the back room, and he heads back there and finds, you guessed it, a Fight Club scenario going on in the computer repair cage. Jeff and Fernando are shirtless, punching the crap out of each other as Lester looks on amused, wearing those sunglasses again. Morgan tries to shut it down, but no one listens to him. Lester pressures a random green shirt who we've never seen before into fighting Jeff next, but the green shirt panics and tries to escape the cage. So Lester uses a car battery to momentarily electrify the cage, shooting the green shirt back into a bunch of cardboard. Morgan breaks into the cage and tells them to stop. They agree, but Lester says that Morgan won this time, but he will not be able to shut them down completely. Lester leads all of the nerd herders and green shirts out, leaving the car battery still turned on. He doesn't really unplug it. Back at the apartment, Devon confides to Chuck that he can't bear to go on another mission, and Chuck assures him that he won't have to. Devon gives Chuck the ring phone, and Chuck takes it to the Buy More after hours to dissect it. As Chuck works at a desk in the back room near the cage, Morgan enters and begins to unload on Chuck all about the Fight Club situation that's unfolding. I imagine that is a stressful thing to happen in your workplace, so I can understand why he wants to vent.
Yeah.
Morgan is concerned that he's going to lose his new job and his new promotion. Chuck is distracted while he's waiting for the ring phone to finish syncing with his computer or something. I'm not really sure what he's doing. Chuck tells Morgan that he needs a plan, and Morgan agrees. Chuck explains that when he has problems, he forms a plan by really analyzing the situation and finding the weak points. As he says this, the ring phone finishes uploading to the computer. Morgan takes Chuck's advice and storms out. Chuck impulsively calls Sydney on the phone. Sydney is confused and annoyed, and Chuck introduces himself as the spy that killed Shaw. Devon Woodcomb was just a decoy. He's the real spy. Chuck then makes his way to the nerd herd desk and calls Sarah to tell her that he just called Sydney and told her to come to the Buy More because he's setting up a trap. Sarah is confused, but Chuck tells her that he needs her and Casey to come by to the Buy More because Sydney and her men just arrived. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Before Sarah and Casey can make their way to the Buy More, Shaw grabs the phone and tells Chuck he's on his own for this one. Sarah expresses some anxiety that Chuck will get nervous and not be able to perform, and Shaw finally makes, like, a legit erectile dysfunction joke. So I was like, thank God. I like this guy.
Cutting through that subtext and just getting to the point of the message.
Please do. Unfortunately for Chuck, at this moment, Sydney and her bad guys show up and begin unscrewing the Buy More doors. Apparently only current and or former employees can stroll in after hours because they can't just open the door. Like, they have to unscrew it. Chuck gets on the PA system and tells Sydney and her guys to go to the home theater room, but they find him immediately hiding behind the Nerd Herd desk. I'm pretty sure that's happened before, but maybe that happened to Morgan. I don't really remember, but I do kind of remember someone talking on an intercom and then getting found. Mm-hmm. Chuck tells the bad guys that the store will be open in the morning if they'd like to come back, and he says it's open at 10. That seems really late for this kind of store to open, but I guess it explains why Chuck has so much leisure time in the morning. Sarah and Casey watch the video feed from the Buy More and tell Shaw he's effectively killing Chuck by not allowing them to help him. Shaw says he has faith in Chuck's plan, so much so that when Sarah and Casey say they're going in, Shaw pulls his guns on them. He has two guns. Chuck tells Sydney he's the one who killed Shaw, and she asks him to prove this by fighting off two of her guards. Unfortunately, Chuck isn't able to flash, so he gets punched in the face. Then he distracts the bad guys and or freaks them out a little bit by pretending to do some, like, pseudo martial arts moves, and then he runs away. At this point, Sarah tells Shaw to just shoot her if he has to, and runs out to help Chuck, because Sarah don't give a shit. Casey pulls a gun on Shaw in the commotion and forces Shaw to lower his guns. Casey and Sarah run into the Buy More while Chuck hides in the electrified cage. When one of the guards touches the door to the cage, he gets shocked by the car battery and accidentally shoots one of the other guards, so I guess that works out pretty well for Chuck. Sarah and Sydney have a pretty brutal fight, but Sarah eventually gets knocked down and unable to get back up, although she is alive. Like, she doesn't get shot or anything, she just gets, like, badly hurt. Chuck grabs one of the guard's guns and chases Sydney out onto the loading dock. She taunts him that he won't be able to shoot her while secretly pulling out a knife. And Chuck tries to be tough, but he also can't let go of his innocence. He can't pull the trigger. And I'm like, just shoot her, Chuck. As Sydney is about to throw the knife at Chuck, she gets shot. Blood immediately comes out of her mouth, which, like, I don't think that happens the second the bullet hits you, but I'm not a doctor, so maybe I'm wrong. Sarah has run out to help Chuck, her gun drawn, but she's not the one who fired. Who did? It's Shaw, who's standing behind Sydney. Back in Castle, Shaw notes that Devon's identity has been contained, but he tells Chuck that caring so much about friends and family is what makes him unable to pull the trigger, and that ultimately makes everyone more vulnerable. He turns to Sarah for support, but Sarah just says sometimes it helps to know you have something to lose. Also, in the scene, Chuck is wearing a striped polo shirt that I'm 100% sure my dad owned in 2009. It's from Old Navy. In the Buy More, Big Mike tells Morgan that he needs to get his house in order and not be afraid to pull the trigger. So that's I guess the recurring theme of the episode that we're just getting now. Morgan confronts Lester and ultimately fires him. This immediately deflates Lester's Fight Club bravado, and he begs for his job back, saying he has to get out of his mom's place. Under Big Mike's watchful eye, as we all are, Morgan agrees to rehire Lester, but on probation. Again, I want to say Morgan's a little more likable this season. I feel like we've all been in that situation where we're assistant manager of a store and the employees are forming a fight club. And I just feel like he's a little bit more relatable. He's a little bit more mature. He's not doing anything egregious. I dare I say, I liked Morgan in this episode.
Yeah. I think he seems to be a little bit more mature and a little bit level-headed, and he's not doing, I don't know. I guess since Anna's been gone, and since he's gone to Hawaii, he's really done a lot of growing up, it seems.
I'm proud of him. I hope that this trend continues. The episode ends with Morgan and Chuck, who have also completely unpacked their apartment and have a pretty cool decor going on, hosting Ellie, Devon, Sarah, and Casey for dinner. Ellie takes the bottle of wine that Casey has brought over with him and says, "You've had enough of that," which I thought was funny. Chuck and Sarah have a moment, and then Chuck tells Devon that they caught Sydney and everything will be fine. Devon is relieved. Back in Castle, Shaw watches surveillance footage of all this and puts on a wedding ring that he was keeping in a box in his pocket. It's a little weird, but he's got a wedding ring. What's that all about? We don't know.
He's been studying the ring for a long time, but is it? I think Beckman made it seem like he was studying the evil organization called the Ring, but did she mean that he's just like an expert at like jewelry and rings?
He has been studying his own ring. That's a good point.
That's not a good credential for why he should lead a spy team at all. Just someone who's been studying a single golden ring.
Okay, so we have to talk about what was going on with Beckman. Like, the setup was that they were going to meet Shaw. Why did they have to do it that way? Why didn't she know about it beforehand? What was going on here?
Yeah, the setup was that Shaw was intentionally trying to get caught by Sydney so that they could get her and kill her, I guess. It didn't really make sense that they did it that way, and I also tried to watch it and tried to think through it, and like that doesn't make sense to me. I guess the point is that like Beckman is kind of losing, like, ceding control a little bit to Shaw. Like, that's all I can glean from it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Chuck, Marry, Kill is a segment where we identify one part of the episode that we want to marry, one part of this episode we want to kill. I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to tell you my marry. It's real quick, real easy, real simple. My marry is Julius,
wow,
the security guard.
He was really nice.
What an unsung hero. He was nice. He was very considerate. He seemed to be genuinely concerned for Evan and very comfortable about the discussing the intricacies of relationships. So, Julius, he was a real nice minor player.
Yeah, I really liked him. My marry is going to be while Devon is trying to explain to Ellie where he has been over the course of his having been kidnapped, when he's struggling to lie to her. There is a line where he says he thought he saw a cat in a tree and it was injured, but in fact the cat was a bear. And then Ellie, incredulous, well, actually at this point she's kind of like playing along, and she says the cat was a bear, and I just thought that was really funny. I laughed out loud at that. It is like some of the reviews. I read another IGN review, and it's like that scene is a little bit forced for its humor, but I thought it was just done so well that I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a little campy.
Yes, the cat was a bear.
My kill was I kind of liked the Fight Club thing overall. Like, it made me genuinely laugh at first when Lester was saying that he's never felt more alive than getting kicked in the face. And I like how he leads the rest of the Buy More into descending into his kind of like madness.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of funny. My kill, though, is the electrified cage. I just kind of like, as it was happening, like I said before during the recap, I wasn't clear. I was like, did he unplug it? Is it always unplugged? Like, it seemed like he didn't unplug the thing. But then I knew immediately that it was going to come and be a part of the A plot of Chuck's plot. I was like, Chuck's going to use the electrified cage somehow. It just seemed really kind of forced and predictable. And yeah, and then it made me question the whole Fight Club scenario B plot anyways, because I was like, was that just set up so that there would be an electrified cage? You know what I mean?
I do. And actually, Chris, we have a very similar kill.
We do.
So we'll be collaborating on this murder, I guess. I thought
co-conspirators.
That the bad guy getting shocked and this causing him to like get electrified and shoot like one of the other bad guys with his gun, that just felt like way too easy and way too cheesy. There could have just been one guy. He didn't need to shoot the other guy. Like, if the intention was to be like funny and campy with it, like, that's fine. I get that. But it was just kind of like, I was like, really? Like, that seems silly.
Yeah. Something that's silly that we do here is the Scooter scale, where we rank a television show using corn dogs.
Yes, it is.
We have up to 5 corn dogs to use, and we don't have to use them if we don't want to. So, Erin, on a scale of 0 to 5, what would you rank this episode?
I'm going to give this episode a 4. Again, this is the season of Erin, and I feel like I've been rating episodes very highly, but I was very excited about the introduction of Shaw. I really, I don't know if this will continue to be the case. I don't remember totally my feelings on him. I know he's kind of an impediment to the Chuck and Sarah situation, so that's not something that I will love. But I do, I did like his introduction, even if parts of it were a little bit nonsensical. I liked the episode. I liked seeing Devon's foray into the spy life, especially now that we know that he doesn't want to be there. Like, I think that was an interesting choice for his character. And I thought that it, again, like developed his character some more, gave him some new depths. The only thing I would have liked to see, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more of Ellie. I think we'll probably get to see some more of her in the season, but I think like I really liked the moment where she didn't like believe Devon's lies. I thought that was really funny. I thought it was believable seeing her kind of freaked out about Devon, like where he was, but we don't get to see like a ton of her. And I think that we could have probably stood to see more. So between that and the confusion of the setup, not setup, whatever, I think I dock it one corn dog away from perfect, but I think it was a fun episode and I enjoyed it.
I would, I'm going to give it 3.5.
Okay.
Last week was really a high point for me. And I feel like it's kind of strange because this episode, you know, it is directly tied into the previous episode, but it feels like it kind of doesn't have, it feels different because it's like dealing with the stuff from Chuck versus the Angel de la Muerte, with Devon's involvement, but then it almost like immediately leaves that, or doesn't, like I really would have liked this episode if it was similar, like if they didn't have a buy more B plot, and it was really like Ellie was a bigger part, like you were saying, and it was really kind of more like just connected and more of like I don't know, like a couplet, I don't know.
Yeah,
or
I totally agree with that.
But yeah, this time I just like, and introducing Shaw and also juggling the stuff with Devon, it just kind of felt a little awkward at points. There wasn't anything I really disliked about it per se, but it just didn't have that wow factor for me like last week did. Yes,
I totally agree. But I did have fun with it. I did want to point out just a few items of trivia that are listed on its IMDb page. This is something that I found. So we have, when yelling at the lady customer looking for HD TV sale in the store, Chuck is speaking Thai. And a feature that IMDb has is listing how many people found this interesting. So 5 out of 5 people found that fact interesting. The next fact is the sunglasses Lester wears are probably a reference to Brad Pitt's sunglasses in Fight Club. So only probably, not definitely, probably. And 8 out of 9 people found this interesting. So one person didn't find that interesting.
That one person prefers certainty. They want to know if it is a reference, not probably.
And then similarly, we have this fact. Brandon Routh is a guest star in this episode. Routh previously played Superman in Superman Returns and the Atom in Arrow and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Years later, Zachary Levi would go on to play Shazam, another DC Comics superhero. And 5 of 6 found this interesting. So again, one person did not find that interesting, and I'm very curious about the one person that did not. Like, what didn't they like about it? Did they think that the facts that I just listed are so obvious that why would they be included on IMDb, much like I thought? Or that's not really, most people have been in either a Marvel or a DC movie, so saying that both people in a show have been in one is not really that interesting.
I hope they're not a listener of this show where they're like, I just like listening to a show about Chuck as long as they don't bring up any of those uninteresting tidbits from IMDb.
I do have to say, on my flight back from Arizona, there was someone was watching Shazam on their phone. So that was, it was pretty exciting to look over because I was watching Chuck on the plane in preparation for one of our episodes. And I turned over and I was like, oh, that's also Zachary Levi. So that was fun.
That's a fun flight.
Also,
did you know that talking about Brandon Routh and Superman, but apparently Matt Bomer and also Ryan McPartlin also auditioned for the role of Superman.
That is interesting. 1 out of 1 Erin's finds that interesting. While I was watching Chuck with my parents, my mom asked me, the guy who plays Chuck, has he been in anything? And I was like, oh, he actually, he plays Shazam. I said he was in the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and he plays Shazam. And she was like, oh, has he been in anything recently? And I was like, Shazam came out like a couple months ago. And she was like, oh, okay. So if someone on a plane watching Shazam, my mom, no idea, doesn't know.
Your parents should start their own similar podcast to Go Chuck Yourself, where they discuss Chuck in depth.
Yes, they should. I'll ask them. Maybe they could bring their neighbors on as guests.
Ooh, that would be good.
Yeah.
I'd listen to that.
I would too.
It has been another delightful episode. Erin, thank you for taking part in this yet another episode. #Season of Erin. We'll see you again next week, listeners at home. I hope everything is well with you. I don't know why I'm saying that just now. I should have said that at the beginning, but who cares? My name is Chris Gillespie, reminding you that food is sexy.
And my name is Erin Arata, letting you know that anything is possible. Hope we're still number 1 in Italy.
Yeah, Erin, I gotta mean to talk to you about that.
Oh no!
I got some bad news. Thanks for listening. As always, a big thanks to the artist Hadakoa and the fine folks at freemusicarchive.org for providing us with our theme song, Warm Up. If you want to drop us a line, you can reach us at GoChuckYourselfPodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Go Chuck Yourself on your preferred podcast platform. New episodes come out every Monday morning, and you do not want to miss a new episode. Thanks again. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.